then we do a test. Let's see, let's connect again to the same one that we were testing here. Like that. Continue. So bank account linked successfully. And if you go to a sheet, it will start writing here. So you can see it wrote the headers and then it starts bringing the transactions. So what's up, guys? I'm going to explain you how to connect Plaid with Google Sheets and how you can bring these transactions to the spreadsheet. So with Plaid, you can do a bunch of things. You can create payment links. You can do payments. You can do a lot of things, a lot of integrations. But we're going, just for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to start with the easiest, which is just bringing the transactions to the Google Sheet. So there are multiple things that we need to take care. So I created this chart here to show you guys what was the flow, right? So what the flow is. So first we need to create like a front end somewhere where the user can go and can connect to the bank. So this is mandatory, we need to do it. And then once the user connects to the bank, we get something that is called a public token. And with that token, we can exchange it to get an access token. And that access token, we can use it to make calls to the API. In this case, we're going to get the transactions. So that's how it works. And if you go to the documentation, for example, if you go to plaid.com/docs/link, here, all docs, sorry, and then you go here to link, you can see here that that's explained. So we need to create first like a front end so the user can make a call to this token, create, and then with the public token we can exchange it to get the access token. So I'm going to share all of this in the description down below so you can check it out. But this is pretty much how it works. So I'm going to start from scratch so you can see, guys, how I do it. So first we need to create an account in Plaid, and then we need to get the client ID and the secret. Right, so I already logged in here, but if you were to do it, you just go to plaid.com and then you create an account in this case, and then log in. Once you are logged in, you will see the dashboard, which is this one. This is the dashboard, and here you can see that you can get the production access token, the production access keys. So this is when you already have the app built and then you wanna send it to production. You can request the production keys. It's gonna take like 1 week for them to approve that. If you click here, you're gonna fill all the details of your business, and they're gonna take like 1 week to approve that. But when you are just testing and building, we are going to use the sandbox part here. So to get the sandbox keys, you go to keys here under developers, and then you have the client ID here and then the sandbox. So we just copy these, save them somewhere, have them handy. We're gonna use them later on. So this is for the Plaid part. So then we need to go to the Google Sheet, right? So if we create a Google Sheet here, and we start from scratch. So we need to go to extensions, and then we go to AppScript, right? So as I mentioned, we need to create first a front end so the user can interact with Plaid, and then he can connect to the bank. So here in AppScript, there's something cool, which is like we can create HTMLs. So we're gonna create an HTML, and then we're gonna publish that as a web app. So pretty much the HTML that we're going to create, and when we deploy that as a web app, that's gonna be the front end, and then the code here in Code.js is going to be the back end. So let's start with the front end so you can see how it works. So let me have some notes here so you can see how it works. Okay, so if we start with the front end, we can create an index HTML here. So you just call it index like that, and then it gives you like a structure where we can start. So we need to first do the link part so we can connect Plaid, right? So if we go to link again and we click here in web, you can see that it explains how we can embed this part. that we need, the DGS script to a front end so it can work. So we need these links here. So this is pretty much what we're going to do here. So first, under head, we can delete these. And under head we can have title, and then we can call it, I don't know, we can call it, let me create, yeah. So title, we can have it like play iteration. And then we need to create the script, this part. So as I mentioned, we can just copy paste this. So this is it for the head part. Then we need the body. So here we need a button somewhere. So we can click, and then button. We close it. Yeah. All right. So, and then we have this as ID. We can have it as a link button. I forgot. Oh, wait, this is here. I'm missing this part here. Yeah, like that. And then you can say like connect your bank. Connect your bank. So that works. So now we are going to test this out and see if the web app is working. So before I do that, we need to create a function here in code called toGet. And that's because every time that we deploy a web app in AppScript, it's going to ask for a function called toGet or toPost, and then do something based on that, right? So we go to code.js, and then here in code.js we create a function and we call it toGet, like that. And we open here, and then here we need a constant, which will be the HTML. We will need more things here, but just for now, I just want to show you that HTML is working. So we need a constant called HTML. Then we have HTML service, and then create HTML output from file, like that. So this is the one we need, and then we need to pass here the name of the HTML. In this case, we call it index, so that will be index here. And then we need to return this HTML, like that. And then we save that. And then here, we need to do deployment, right? As a web app. So you click here and then click new deployment. And here is going to ask you select the type. So you click set web app. And then here in who has access, you can select anyone. So once you do that, here you can pass a description for that version. So in this case, I can call it just test1 and deploy. So it's gonna give you this link. So we have here the button, and then if we click, it will prompt the user to select the bank. But for now, it's not working because it's empty, right? So right there is working. So if we go back, now we need to fill this whole HTML. So after we have the button here, we need to add the script part, right? So it can work. Actually, I had this uncommented. So this is the script that we got from this one. And then, so we need to create a script. So we do a script, and then we close it like that. And here is script. We need to create a function which will get the public token once the user clicks in that button, right? So we create document at event listener, like that. And here we need DOM content loaded. And then here we need the function that I was mentioning about. Okay, so now we have it, right? So here, actually, let me close this already. So here we will have a variable. Will be like link handler. We'll call it link handler, and then it will be play.create And then here we will have the token. We need the token, right? Which will be Plaid Link token, which will be dynamically injected. And then we have like on success. So we have on success here, and then here we have a function, and this will be public token. And he will pass the metadata like that. And then here we need to run this the function that will exchange the public token to get the access token, right? So here we're getting the public token, right? Once the user clicking that button, and then we need to exchange that to the access token so we can make a call to the API. However, that function will be here in code.js, so we need to call it from here. So the way you call it from HTML is you use this Google script .run and then the name of the function. So the function will be called exchange public token. So in this case, I don't have it. I haven't written down the function, but I will just here and then we pass in here the public token that we got, right? And yeah, then we can give an alert to the user that the bank was connected successfully. So one bank account linked successfully. And then we kind of like this, and then yeah, like that. So this is how it will work. We can add this comma here, and then we can add if on fail, on exit. If there's an error or something, we can get a log, right? So just to know if something happens. So we get the error, and then we pass the metadata. Then if there's an error, if there's no error actually. Sorry, if error is not null. So we print the console error. Error. Like that. And then otherwise we print it. Oh, wait, this needs to be here. Console the log, and here metadata. Then this is how we handle if there's an error. And then we need to add something else, one last part, which is actually that goes close this here. So here we need to add document by the link, the same one that we have here. And then add event listener. Then if there is a click, something needs to happen, which will be the link handler app that we already created above. So function, and we have this, and then we open here, and then we have link handler, this one here, then open, and this pretty much is for the HTML. So we can just format it a little bit. So let me see if everything is working. I think that should be it. Yeah. So this is pretty much HTML how it will work. So just to give you a quick walkthrough again. So here we're adding the embedded JS script that we need, so it can pop up the user to select the bank. And this function will be taking care of getting that public link that this returns, and then we call our own function that we're going to create here in Code.js called exchange public token. And with that, we can get the access token. And with that access token, we can make calls to the API. So this is just a simple HTML, nothing fancy. I'm not going to add like styles or anything. I just want to show you that it works. So once we have this, we can go to Code.js. So we just add another constant here, which will be link token. Create link token. This will be another function that we're gonna create later on. Just gonna have a hard coded here. So this will be to generate the link token. So now we need here just one more thing about the HTML, which will pass the Plaid Link token. This thing here that we need, that I mentioned that we were going to create later on. So this is one here. So HTML append. Then here we need to add a script. So actually, the way it's written is with this. It's not like with this one like that. So let me do that. Script. And then let me open it again. Script. So it's like adding embedded HTML within code. So this is the script part, and then we need to add the const, which will be the plain link token, which will be here. We will add this like link token. So as you can see, we're passing the link token that we're getting here from this function to our HTML, so this function can work. So this is how, actually I need to add here something else, which we just close it. Yeah, so that's how it works. So now we could start from this, creating this function, but let's do something before. We are going to make multiple calls to the API, and we are gonna use always the same options and the same like we're gonna use the same, like we need to create a function that will make the calls with the same options, with the same payload, and also return that, and we can just use JSON to parse those details. But we can make it like every time that we do a call to the API, we can just create like a helper function that can help us with that. So I'm going to create it, but I'm going to explain you later on how you will see later on how it is useful. So we can just create this one, fetch late data, and here we will pass the URL where we will do the call, and then the payload. So this will be static. We will always pass this. So here we have the options. We can have options, and then here options, we always make post methods to the API. So this will use a post method, and then what will be the content type. The content type will be that's static as well, which is application JSON. So this sets the content type header automatically for every call, and we need the payload. So in this case, pass it like that, JSON stringify like that, and then we pass the payload. And then we need one more thing here, which will be mute HTTP exceptions, and this is just to like show us the errors. If there's an error, we can debug it easily. I mean, you can remove this if you don't want it, but I usually add it just to make sure that I can check the logs. So that's pretty much the function, and then we need here the response that we get from there, from that call response. Our response will be URL fetch up. This will make the call, then fetch, then we pass the URL with the payload. Sorry, with the options. And that's it. We could add a log here just to see if there are any errors, but shouldn't. But we can add something here. So then we get the context. So this is to like context. Sorry, but the content text didn't return what is coming from the response, and then we just return that as a JSON parse. So we parse the response again like that, and this function will be useful. So every time that we make a call, we just make a call using this function, so you can see that it formats the options as we need them, and then once we get a response, it returns the response in a JSON already parsed. So we don't need to do this every time that we make a call. So this is the logic of this function, just a helper function. So the next function that we need is called create link token, and with this function we will create the basic link token, so we can get, as I mentioned, we need to create the link token first, and that's why we need the front end. And if you check here, we are using it in here. So we need that function, and then with that function we can exchange it to get the access token. So let's start with creating that. Alright, so we need another function called create token, which is create link token, and then here we have a constant which will be the URL where we need to make the call, and that will be HTTP. So HTTP is, so we need this sandbox. You can change this to production when you are in production, but right now, because we're in sandbox, I'm using the sandbox endpoint. Then we need link token create. So this will create the public token, the link token, and then with that we need another constant which will be payload, and then here we need to pass the client ID, and actually we need to get that. So if we go to Plaid, as I mentioned here in the keys, if you go to under developers keys, you get here the client ID. Close this, the client ID. We can have it as a const as well, so client ID like that, and we need another one which will be the secret, and the secret will be this one here, so you can see it. Copy this. So this is the secret, right? And then we need to pass that here as a payload. So we have here the client ID. Client ID is equal to client ID, And then we need also the secret. So secret is equal to secret. All right, so this is secret, and we also need something. We need to pass some things like client name and client ID. That is mandatory. Plaid asks us to have that. So in this case, I'm going to hardcode something, but ideally, if you're having this in production and you have multiple clients or multiple users, what you can do is having this like dynamic, so you can create a name and an ID per user and save that in a database or something. But in this case, because it's just a demo, I'm going to hardcode it like client name to be just can be just test, and then we also have to pass the client user ID, but I'm going to do it later. So for now, we need to pass something else, which is called products. So we need to see, so this is to create like the token, right? So it's like scopes, kind of, I mean, in a similar fashion. So it will be like, what will be the products that we are going to use the token with. So in this case, we need the auth because we need authentication. And we also, because we're going to use transactions, so we're gonna pass also transactions. So this token will work for authentication and to bring the transactions. And then we need also the country codes, and this is for what banks we need to like be able to connect. So in this case, I'm going to pass US, so it can show me the banks from the US, and then also language. So what will be the language of it? So we have English, so that will be N, like that. And then, as I mentioned before, we need to pass the ID. This will be the last part. So we will have like a client user ID. So this can be created dynamically, as I mentioned before, but I will just use a hard-coded value here. So that will be, we need client ID, secret, client name, that will be test. And then we need products, which will be authentication and transactions. And then we need the country codes, which will be US, language, English, user, and the user ID, which in this case will be number 1. And then we can close this. And then we need to make we are going to use this function to make the call. So that will be, we have const, that will be data that we're going to get as a response. So we have fetch, play data, and then we pass the URL, and then we pass the payload. That will be, and then we return that. And we need to return the response is gonna give us a dictionary, and part of that dictionary will bring the link token, so we can just use the link token like that. It will be link token. That's part of the dictionary. So that's how it works. I think I could do a test so I can show you how it works. So let me see if we duplicate this, and then we have like executions here. I don't know what that is. And then we can have a log here so we can show you what the data looks like. Data, let's see what that brings. So you save this here, and then something that I didn't mention that I changed here, that I found an error, was that I was having this equals, but it's this double. We need this instead of this. That was something that I missed. So I changed that, I saved it here, and then we deploy this new deployment, and then deploy. So if we connect to bank here and we run it, it will show us something here. Refresh. Yeah, this is what it will bring. So you can see that it brings this link token. So that's what we need. So that's why I'm using this here. we should bring in that line token. Okay, so you see it works. So now we need another function which will be the one that we will use to exchange this public token to get the access token, right? So so this will be the last function for this workflow of tokens. So we can call it like function, and we can have like exchange public token, and then we will pass the public token, right? Public token, and then okay, I got it. So you can see. So public token, and here we need again const URL, and then we will make a call another endpoint. In this case, we're still using sandbox because we're on sandbox. But remember, you can change this to production if you're using the production one. Play, and then we need item public token exchange. So this is the endpoint that we need. And then here we need again a payload. And actually here it's pretty similar to the one that we have above. So we need the client ID, which will be, again, needs to be like this, client ID is equal to client ID, and then we need the secret. Secret will be equal to secret, and then we need the public token. Public token like that, which will be public token. Okay, so this is how, that's a payload, and then again we are going to use this function, this helper function that we created here. So we, again, same thing, data, this is the response, fetch, play data, URL, payload, pass the payload, and then we need to get the access token. So in a similar fashion, as I showed you before, like it returns a dictionary, and part of that dictionary, one of the keys is called link token. In this case, will return a similar thing, but one of the keys will be access token. So we will have the access token here from this dictionary. So we can have access token data. So it comes from the response, and then like that. And then we can return something just to, like, I mean, we could just leave it like this and that will just work, but we can just return something just as a message. So like access token exchange and start is exchanged successfully. It's just like debugging, but you get the idea. So we have the access token here, and with that, the flow is completed, the authentication flow is completed. So now we can have, now we can make calls to the API, right, with that token. So as I mentioned, we only have the scope of transactions, but you could just pass whatever you want to pass here. There are a lot of things that you can do with the API, but in this case, we're just going to bring transactions. So something to keep in mind is that if I check the logs here in transactions, I think it's in transactions. Look, we can follow it. So we were using this token create, and then we token exchange. So you can see here that we are going to use this transactions sync. So something to keep in mind is that in an old version of this API documentation, they were using transactions/get, but now this is the new way, transactions/sync. So if you see both endpoints, I think both endpoints do the same thing. It's just that this is the one that they recommend to use in the new implementations. Okay, so if we go back, so we can just create a new function that will bring the transactions. So we can call it, for example, sync Plaid transactions, how to spell transactions, and then we are going to pass the access token that we got from the authentication part, right? So in that case, okay, so we can call the function like this. So we can just have like this function like that, and then again we need to make a call to an endpoint. So we are using sandbox.plaid.com, and then we need to use the transactions sync endpoint. So you can see it here. I'm using this one here, transaction sync. We can close this. So we need to create a payload again. So in this case, again, variable payload, and then we need to pass the client ID. Client ID is equal to client ID, and then we need the secret. The secret is equal to secret, and then we have the access token is equal to access token. Actually, I think to not get confused, we can have it like this, access token. So in that way, we can differentiate between this one and this one, so we don't get confused between the actual access token and the argument. So in this case, like that, access token. And then we need a count. So count will be how many transactions we want to bring at once. So in this case, we can have 500, but you can just set this up depending on how many transactions you want to bring. Because it's sandbox, sometimes it sends like 20, 30, 40. So it doesn't really matter this count here. But when you are on production, it matters because you might have more than 500 transactions. So you can just use that count. And the things like you also need to keep in mind that you can use pagination here. So for example, in the first call, you can bring 500, and then you use the next pagination, and then you bring another 500. That's how it works. I can explain you later on how to the pagination part here. I'm not going to implement this function because this is just a tutorial, but I'm going to explain you how to do it if you want to do it. So here we also need something that is called, I'm going to implement this, it's a loop to retry this call, because what I've noticed in Plaid is that sometimes when you finish the flow, the authentication flow, and you get the access token and you want to make a call to an endpoint, it takes a little time, like to the backend, to like give you the access. So sometimes if you literally just right away make a call to an endpoint, it will return that you don't have access, or it will just return an error, a 400 error, I think. So what a workaround that I've noticed is that you can just have like a loop that it will retry after certain seconds. So in that way, as soon as the access token is ready, we can make a successful call. So for example, in this case, I'm just gonna do 5 retries, and then we can have a delay between each call of 5 seconds, just to be safe. And then if we implement the actual loop, it will be 4. So that will be just a basic loop for e equals 0, e less than retries. Just have the increase. I'm just wondering why. Oh yeah, I think this is an error because I forgot to add. Yeah, I was seeing it. Why is that red? So that makes sense. This one is also wrong because I think we need. Yeah, no, it gonna make sense. All right. So that will be the action loop, and then we could log, but I think what we can do is just make the call. So JSON response, we can have it like this: JSON response, and that will be, again, we are gonna use this function here, our helper function, to make the call. So fetch Plaid data, and we pass the URL, and we have the payload. And then here, I think we can have unlock, so I can show you guys how it works. So we have a log that is show us the actual response of the transaction, so stringify. Yeah, so what will be happening? We pass the JSON response. Then we have this as a format. And then here, so in order for us to know if the access token is ready to make calls, it returns, the dictionary returns update status. Like that's one of the keys. So it says like what's the status of that. So we can have like, they have multiples, but the one that we need is called not ready. So we can have it like that. So if update status, actually, wait, before I do that, I need to create a variable which is called update status, right? So update status, and that will be the JSON response, and that will be, this is the key name. So that will return, this is the, again, like something like that. It returns a dictionary. Part of it says the status of the transactions. So if it is not ready, it will let us know. So in this case, we're gonna check if the update status is ready. If it is not ready. If it is not ready, you're just gonna wait 5 seconds and try again, right? That's the idea. So in this case, if update status is equal to not ready, like that. If this update status is not ready, we can have it like utilities. So you can wait 5 seconds, sleep. So it's gonna wait this delay of 5 seconds. And otherwise it will just do something, right? Because we already got the transactions. So in this case, what we can do is we can add a check. It's just gonna see if there are if there are transactions, if there are actual transactions, right? Because the idea is like, if you are using this function to bring transactions in production, for example, if you are developing an app or something, the idea here will be that you are bringing, let's say, we're going to bring the transactions to a Google Sheet, right? So in this case, if you're bringing transactions, I don't know, maybe you can be checking transactions every 10 minutes or something. You can, if you make the same call every time, it's gonna bring the same transactions and the new ones. So here, if you're using this in production, maybe what you can do is implement like a function or something that's gonna check for duplicates and only write to the sheet the new transactions. That would be the idea, right? So in this case, we can just make it simpler, and we can just check if there are actually transactions to write to the sheet, and if they are, then we can have a function that writes the transactions to the sheet. So if, and then we have here JSON response, and then the transactions come in this key. They are in this key called added. So if there's like a key called added, and then this added length, it's length. How to spell it? Length is so if there are more than one transaction, if there's something there, then we write the transactions to a sheet, right? So in this case, we can have another function to write the transactions, but we're going to create another function below. But for now, we can just have it like transactions hard coded here to sheets, and then that will be JSON response, and it will write to a sheet transactions, and that will be it. But we can have a else here just to capture something. So if there are nothing, we can just log something like transaction strang. Transactions are not ready. So in this case, it will just make another try after 5 seconds. But if there's something, you just can't stop to make retries and just return, finishes the function, and then just writes to the sheet. So let me format this so it looks good. Yeah, so that's actually it. So let me test this out so we don't have that, so we can just comment this so it doesn't give us an error. But let me see if there is something actually here. However, I was checking something here before I do the test and show you guys how it's working. I was checking this HTML and I noticed 2 errors. One here, I had a misspell here in DOM content loaded, so I fixed it here, and I had another misspelled here in get element by ID. So you gotta change that in order for it to work. So I fixed that, and if we deploy this, we save this, and then new deployment, deploy, you will notice that it will work now. You see, so this is pretty much the front end from Plaid. So if we try to connect, this is a sandbox, so it doesn't matter which one you choose. We can go with this one, and then we just click on continue. You can check this one. Success. So you can see here bank account linked successfully, and we should see transactions now. So if we refresh this, you can see that here this function was called. So we get ID. And you can see here that we get the transactions from Sandbox. So now we need to take these transactions and we need to write them in the sheet in a more legible way. So let's do that. If we go back here, we can now go to code again. Yes, so now we need another function which will be write transactions to sheet. This one here that we had already. So this one will write the transactions to the sheet. So we can have it like this, and this one will receive the transactions. So we need the spreadsheet here. So sheet, spreadsheet, get active spreadsheet. So that will take the actual spreadsheet that we're using, and then we also need to get the current spreadsheet. So the only one that we had, the only sheet that we had, get active sheet, this one here, which will be this one here, sheet number 1. So get active sheet, and then we close that. And then what we can do is we can set up some headers. So headers, and that will be the details that the transactions, the details that the transactions dictionary come with. So we need here transaction ID, and then we also need the date, name, amount, and lastly category. So that should work. So yeah, we can add something else here, which will be sheet clear, and this will delete everything in the sheet if there's something. So every time that we call this function, it will delete everything in the sheet and then write again. But you can delete this if you don't want to have it. And for example, if you are taking care of the duplicates here, you can remove this part and only write the new transactions every time that you call the function. But in this case, let's delete everything, and then sheet, we will append whatever comes in that dictionary. Sorry, append the headers. So we will append this to the first row. And yeah, that's it. Now we will write the actual transactions. So transactions for each. So this will loop for each transaction that comes in that dictionary. We can have a function that will receive one of the transactions, transaction, will receive a transaction, and then it will write it. So we can have it like this. So for each row, it will write transaction dot transaction ID. If there is not a transaction ID, you can just write like that. Okay. So for example, this is what is coming here. If we check again the dictionary, you can see that it comes with a transaction ID. Where is it? So first you can see that it brings the ID, the accounts IDs, and then ID here, the added, sorry, and then we can see the transaction ID. Where is it? You can see here transaction ID. Then this is what we're going to, I mean, you can write everything if you want, but we are just going to write a few things here, but you get the idea. And then transaction date, again, if there's nothing in transaction date, we can just write like this. And then we can have the transaction name, same idea. If there's nothing, just like that. And then the transaction amount, nothing, then same. And lastly, we can have the transaction category, transaction category. Sorry, this category, this is lowercase category. We can have a ternary here, which will be transaction category, and then we join what it brings. We separate that with a comma like that. If there's nothing, again, right now, like that. Okay, so that will write to a sheet, and then we append that. So sheet, append row, and we append the row. So that's it. If we save this and then we deploy it. Okay, I need to give access again. If we deploy this, let me close this. Then we do a test. Let's see, let's connect again to the same one that we were testing here. Like that. Continue. So bank account linked successfully. And if you go to a sheet, it will start writing here. So you can see it wrote the headers and then it starts bringing the transactions. So this is pretty much how it works. So you can see that it's working. So we did this in less than 100 lines of code. So yeah, guys, so this is it. I'm going to share this with you. Down below in the description, you can have I will have a link to my GitHub, so you can go there and check the code out if you wanna just copy paste it. If you have any question, just write it down in the comment section, and I will help you when I get the I will help you out. Okay. So yeah, I hope this helps you with your integrations, and let me know if you have any questions. Bye.